This is Sheri with Scrappin with Sheri, and I don't know about you, but I love the products in the Q1 secret box from Creative Memories. The January 2023 box I think was one of my very favorites for several different reasons, but I love the fact that there's a QR code that you can scan that gives you all the page ideas to do with your secret box products. Now, if you know me at all, you know that I've played around with them a little bit differently. And this is going to be my first attempt at doing some page layouts with the secret box products. So I hope they turn out okay. You will need to add a few things, and I'll talk you through those as we go through the page layouts. But the first page layout that we're going to do uses this green. It's got the grassy green, the flowers on the back side, just the geometric shapes on one side. Then we're going to use the two dark brown burlaps with the light brown burlap on the back. And then I have also pulled out the cover sheets from the burlap and from the lace paper packs. Now these are the front cover sheets, and we're just going to use those to weld some paper onto them. So let's go ahead and get started with this layout number 1. Now with this layout, we're going to stack the brown and the green together. And we're going to cut those at 6 inches, which means on our trimmer, we need to pull the arm out to get to the 6-inch mark. So cutting both of those at the 6-inch mark. And then I'm going to lay those out on the cover sheet backgrounds, because we're going to put the browns in the middle. The greens are going to go on the outside edges, but I want to do a little something with those before we put them down. I'm going to stack the two greens together, and we're turning them sideways, and I'm going to cut at 1 inch. And then cut at 1 inch again. And if you watch me work, you know I typically put the bulk of my paper on the left side so I can hold it with my left hand as I cut. It just provides a little extra stability. So we've got those 4 little strips that are 1 inch by 6. We've got the brown that is a 6 by 12. And then these other 2 greens. And to do this layout, we're just going to flip that green on the top and the bottom to give us a little contrast. Isn't that pretty? So you get to see both patterns, which I like. I love the double pattern paper where you can see both sides of it. So that's the basic layout. But this other sheet of brown that we had, we are going to use with the Field Fence border punch, and we're going to punch 1 fence with that. So let me just slide these pieces over to the side a little bit. Now, if you remember, when you have a punch like this, you've got the 2 little black lines on the front, and to make the first cut, you will line the first cut up with one of those black lines. It doesn't matter which one. I tend to line it up on the right side with the line on the right side, but you line it up and press, and then you scoot the punch down until you've covered up the blue. And some of the punches have the little triangle that you also have to match up. If you just slide it and you don't match up that triangle, you're going to get a really odd looking border. So we're sliding to the little triangle, covering the blue, and I'm still holding on the back side with my left hand just so I don't get any extra give there. And you just slide and punch. Okay, and we're going to save that extra part of the brown because we've got a plan for it in just a minute. Let's pull these two back apart. Now I'm going to cut my fence in half at 6 inches as well. So with this 12-inch trimmer, I'm going to open that back up and line the end of my fence up at the 6-inch mark and just slash right through there. Now when this is all taped down, this fence is going to go here. This one will go on our opposite side. And you're seeing all the white from the background sheet, so don't worry about that right now. And then I went ahead and pulled these border pieces that came out of the secret box as well. These butterflies that have a little bit of a brown in them. I thought those were really pretty with this particular paper. And I'm going to lay those here. Now, there will be other embellishments on here, but I didn't want to take the time to tape it while you're with me. I wanted to show you the layout first. I will finish creating this and add the tape, add the extra embellishments, all that, and you'll see the finished product. Now layout number 2 uses the leftover from the brown paper that we had in the first layout. This is actually not a layout, it's a single page, but I'm using the brown from the first layout, and then this coral lace is a separate piece of paper, and that's all we're going to use. This was actually a layout from the virtual crop, and I thought it was just fantastic. I thought it was so pretty, and I wanted to recreate it with these papers. So with this, you'll need the arm on your trimmer out because our brown is going to go to the 8-inch mark. So take your brown to the 8-inch and cut that off. I've still got a little excess piece here. And then we're going to turn that and cut once again at the 8-inch mark to give us an 8-inch square. Now with this leftover piece, this is an 8 by 4. We're going to make 2 4-inch squares. So if you just line it up on the 4 and cut, you should have 2 4-inch squares. And the final step of cutting on this brown is to line those points up on the cutting line on your mat and cut both of those. And that gives us 4 triangles. Now this layout, when Creative Memories did it, I thought it was just so pretty. Basically all you do is flip that square over, you add in your little triangles, however you choose to do that. And it makes it look like you've used 2 8-inch squares and you've rotated one of them, but you've used less paper, which I absolutely love. Now I wanted to do something a little bit different on this, strictly because I have used all of my coral in the layouts I'm going to show you. So I wanted to cut out some of the middle of this. And to do that, I'm just going to slide this over to about 4 inches. And the reason I'm cutting out some of the middle is just to give me a little bit of this coral to play with that pretty butterfly punch that came in the box. I thought that was a gorgeous punch. And I didn't really leave myself any extra paper. Now, you could always find coordinating colors in some of your old stash, I'm sure. But I just love it when everything matches exactly. And you can tell I'm not really being real exact with the measurements on this. I just want a piece out of the middle. Now, here's where I am going to be pretty exact. I have learned to love this zero centering ruler. And I used it when I made this page layout for the virtual crop the other day, and it worked really well because I was having a hard time figuring out where the center of my page was. Now you could lay it on your 13-inch mat and that's fine, but let me show you a couple of things with the zero centering ruler. Let me get my repositionable tape just in case I mess up a little bit. You know, the repositionable tape is a lot more forgiving if you think you may need to slide things around. One of the things I love about this zero centering ruler is the fact that it's really thick, and I can slide my paper up against it and slide it up and down, and it's not going underneath the ruler. It's being held in place by the thickness of the ruler. Now, the zero is right in the middle, and what I'm doing is I'm lining up my point with that zero edge on there, and that's going to help me center this exactly. Now you can see side to side I'm off, so I'm just going to slide it a little bit. But if I want to check that, I can move the zero centering over here. Look for my zero mark here. I'm lined up there. Do it here. And I've got a pretty good line right there. You can't see it because of the black line down the middle of my table. But I've got a pretty good center on that. I'm going to slide it just a touch this way. But that zero centering ruler makes that really easy to work with. Now, I also found that it made it really easy to add these triangles in a good spot. And again, I'm going to use my repositionable tape on this in case I do need to fudge it around a little bit. And I kind of eyeball it this side to this side. But once I got one of those in place, I could put my ruler right up against the bottom of that one. Use that repositionable tape. And you see there's a little hole right there where I did the cutout, but I knew that this was going to cover it. So I'm just lining it up along the edge of the square here and along the bottom of my zero centering ruler. Now as you go to the top part, you can line it up again with the edge of this. Repositionable tape just in case. And that zero centering ruler has moved all the way around my page just to help me get my corners squared up. And this is something I used to eyeball all the time, and it turned out okay most of the time, but I just think this ruler makes that so much easier. All right, now we've got that lined up. I will be adding some extra embellishments to this, and I'll show you the finished product. Now for our third page, which is actually a double spread, I have pulled the Shell Shimmer to use as my background. I felt like it was a good complement to the coral. So I've pulled a piece of coral and the piece of green. These are the last two of these that we have. I've also pulled 4 of the border strips from the laser borders. I pulled the 2 brown ones and then the 2 coral ones. And this one only involves one set of cuts really. We're going to use the 12-inch trimmer again, and we're going to cut this at 6 inches again. I kind of like those 6-inch cuts. I like the symmetry of that. So I'm lining both pieces. I've got the coral and the green stacked together, not the Shell Shimmer, that's the background. And I'm lining it up on the 6-inch mark, and I'm just going to do a straight cut here. Now when I lay these out on the Shell Shimmer, very similarly to what we did the first time on the first double spread, I'm going to put the coral in the middle. And you could go with the more lacy coral. I seem to like the back side of this better, but the lacy side is really pretty as well. And then I'm going to lay the green across here. Now I am going to go ahead and tape one of these down because I want to show you the next thing I have in mind for this double spread. I'm using my regular tape on this. There's nothing really hard to match up. And I'm just lining that up right against the edge of that inside. I like the way this looks because when you have this in the album, it almost looks like you've got a whole piece of paper right through the middle. And I think that's a really pretty look in the Creative Memories albums. Now here again, on this, you could use either side of this. I'm going with the lighter green because I feel like it's a really good complement to that coral color. And I'm taking this all the way down to the bottom of the edge of the page. Now again, I'm putting this on Shell Shimmer. And when I get ready to matte pictures, my intention is to use the hot fudge to matte the pictures on this to really make them pop. Of course, part of that would depend on how dark or how light my pictures are. So the other page will be just a mirror image of this. But then I'm going to take these borders and I wanted to double them up. And this is where my hot fudge comes in. This brings in the brown color. Now, one thing I didn't notice initially, I thought, well, I'll turn this way and make those little things point up. But there are little hearts right in the center of each of those little designs. It's like flower petals opened up with little hearts and leaves. So I felt like the hearts probably needed to go the correct direction. And this border is not real intricate. It doesn't have a lot of open spaces, so it's easy enough to use your regular tape on it. And I'm just lining that up. I think I'm going to put the bottom edge of this against the seam here to cover up that seam between the green and the shell and the green and the coral. And that's really pretty. That brings in my browns, so matting in the browns is going to be really pretty as well. Now for this border, I'm going to add it down here. I did it that direction because I wanted to separate the coral from the coral, but I did want to bring a little bit of that color to the bottom as well. But with this border, I'm going to use my foam squares to attach it just to give it a little more dimension than the tape would give it. Now with these borders that are solid, there's no sticky on the background, you don't have to stick tons of these little dots on there, these foam squares. I do several just so when it's in my page protector, it's not smashed completely in the middle. But you could probably get away with about 4 on here. I'm just a little overkill on the foam squares because I really love them. And then I'm going to add this right below the bottom of that brown border. And I'm trying my best to make it so there's not anything showing between those two borders. I don't want any kind of see-through with the green there. All right. So that gives it just a little bit of dimension. It makes that coral pop a little bit. Now I'll be adding more embellishments to this, and you'll see the finished page of this after this video. So for our fourth layout, we are using the lacy papers. We're using this white with a kind of cream lace. It is the brown lace on the back, so it's actually the same piece of paper. We're just using the reverses. For this background, I chose the Hot Fudge cardstock. Now, I am switching back and forth between Hot Fudge and Rich Brown in my collection because I still have some Rich Brown left. The colors are very similar. This may actually be Rich Brown, but Hot Fudge is available currently, so that's what you'll need to pull if you don't have any Rich Brown left. Now back to my trimmer. This time I'm going to use the white lace side first, and I'm going to cut at 3.5 inches. So I'm going to the 3.5 mark. And you can see this time I have the bulk of my paper to the right. I'm going to the 3.5, and I'm going to do that 2 times. So 3.5 and 3.5. Now I'm going to take those 2 3.5 inch strips. They're 3.5 by 12 now. I want to make those 3.5 by 11. So I'm going to line them up, stack them together, and cut at the 1 inch mark right here. All right, and we've got just 2 little tabs left. So lay those aside. Now with the leftover right here, we should have 5 inches left. I'm going to cut 2 2-inch strips out of this in that white lace. So there's one at 2 inches, and there's another coming up at 2 inches. Now that leaves us this little piece right here. It's just about 1 1/4 inches. And I'm going to trim that in half. And the way I do that is with the 0 center on here. Right here I have the 1/2 inch mark. Here's the 1/2 inch mark on this side. And I'm just kind of eyeballing. It's really going to go to about 5/8 on either side. And you know, close enough is good enough sometimes. And in this particular case, it will be. So I'm just trying to line that up top and bottom. Pretty centered. And when you've got a really thin piece right like this, and you want to get it pretty close to exact, I mean, maybe not exactly exact, but you want to get it pretty close, you can use repositionable tape to actually tape it to your trimmer. But there's, excuse me, there's another trick that I found, and that is to put your blade kind of in the center of that piece of paper and go up and then go down. Because if you go down, your paper tends to slide one way or the other. Now you can see that's not exactly exact, but it's really close. And it's going to work for this page layout. So out of that white side, we've got the 3.5 by 11s, 2 of those. We've got 2 2 by 12s. And then we've got our 2 little bitties. There's little edges on this. I can see a little feathering. I may need to change out my blade. But 2 of the 2 little strips that are 12 inches long. Now we're going to take our brown paper. And with our brown lace side, we are going to cut 4 2-inch strips. And I'm just going to line that up on the 2 and cut. Remember, these are cut 2 by 12, and we're cutting 4 of these. Okay, and that will be some excess paper for now. So let's slide the trimmer out of the way, because the thing that we want to do now is lay out a little bit on here just to see where we're headed. To me, when I start cutting pieces and I don't know what's what, it just kind of gets overwhelming when I've got all these little pieces laying here. Now I know this is going here. One thing I did not tell you to do is to cut 1 inch off these little bitties. So we are going to take those back into our trimmer and cut 1 inch off of those. That makes them 11 inches long, just like this part we have on top. And that's going to go along the bottom to give the illusion that we've used a full big old sheet of paper when really we haven't. All right, so what are we doing with these 2 white lace 2-inch pieces and these 4 brown lace 2-inch pieces? Well, this is where we're going to use one of our punches. And I decided to pull out the Damask punch. This has become one of my newest favorites. I have favorites all the time, but this Damask has a really pretty look to it. And again, when we're using punches, we have the 2 little lines on the front that help us line things up. And we are going to punch, actually, this little 2-inch side. So it's going to slide into the front of the punch between the 2 little lines. So release the lever on this to open the punch up. And I'm just going to slide that in between those 2 black lines that are on the front of the punch. And give it a little punch. So I got 1. Remember, you're lining up between the 2 black lines on the front of the punch. And see what it does, because that's a 2-inch design, it just gives you 1 of that little design. So pretty. And I'm going to do that with the brown as well. Lining up between the little black lines on the front. And we're only punching 1 end of these, and you'll see why in just a minute when we get this laid out. If I were brave, I would put 2 in there at the same time, but I'm so afraid one of them would shift a little bit, and I am trying to use every little scrap of paper in this pack So I don't want to mess any of it up. I only bought 1 pack of this, so I hadn't even gotten to practice these ideas first to see how they're going to look. I hope they're going to look okay when we're finished. Let's get the scraps out. All right, so to lay out this 2-page spread, we've got our 3.5 by 11s here, and then we're going to alternate. We're going to put our brown lace in, then our white lace, then our brown lace again, and then this other little strip that's the 11-inch long. And do you see how it creates the illusion that you've got a whole piece of this behind there? Now, when I tape this, I'm going to slide it all down just a hair to even out my difference between the top and the bottom. I want that to be pretty even top to bottom when I tape these down. Now, when I'm taping these down, I will probably use repositionable just on the little edges here, because I can see those catching in the page protector when I stick it in. And in fact, I'm going to go ahead and do that. But you don't have to use repositionable for the whole thing. And I'm using my little blue silicone mat, but Creative Memories has just come out with that silicone mat that is bigger, and it's wonderful, and I can't wait to get my hands on one of those. So you'll start seeing the Creative Memories silicone mat coming up real soon. Those are great to use with the repositionable tape, because the tape, the glue, anything doesn't stick to it. It just provides a great surface to work on without having to worry about all the gunk all over your tools. And with this little strip, you could use repositionable. I have some customers who use repositionable on everything, and that's fine. I don't know. I just kind of stick with what I like, and the regular tape runner works for me for most everything. All right, so you've seen how I use the repositionable on the end of that just to get the edges down. And then I just did the regular tape down the rest of that. And all you have to do really is butt these right up against each other, because they're going to just travel right up the page. So that's the general layout for this. I will go ahead and finish it off and add some embellishments. So for this next layout, it's actually layout number 5, although one of them was only a 1-pager. For this layout, I am using the wood paper. It's got the lighter wood and the darker wood on it as the 2 backgrounds. I've got 2 sheets of that out. And I went into my Serenity collection and pulled this light beigey brown that's got just the geometric shapes on it. It kind of looks like the burlappy feel that we had throughout this Secret Box collection. And I just needed another sheet of this brownish. So I went ahead and pulled this beigey brown from the Serenity collection. And we're back to our trimmer again. Now guess where we're going to cut? Yep, you got it, 6 inches. We're going to cut this beigey from the Serenity collection at 6 inches. Now I'm going to stack those 2. And I'm going to my 1-inch mark right here. And I'm going to cut these at 1 inch. All right, so I've got those 2. Because I stacked, I've got 2 1-inch strips there. And then I have this 5 by 12 sheet. Now I'm going to turn this 5 by 12 sheet to the 5. And I'm going to cut that to make 2 5-inch squares. And then 2 5 by 7 pieces. And we're ready to lay these out. Now you'll notice I left some decorative pieces laying here, some embellishments. I had gone ahead and pulled these little burlap scallop pieces. I pulled the little flags, banners that have the dark brown and the burlap with them. And then I pulled these that kind of look like lace doilies. And those are the pieces I intend to use to start my embellishment on this page. But let's do the paper part first. I always like getting the paper part out of the way, and then I'll lay out all of my embellishments and determine which embellishments go best with which page from that point. So this time, these little border strips are going to go through the center. And you could flip those to use them this direction, or you could keep it all very monochromatic. And I'm going to play with that in just a second and see what I like the look of. But I'm going to put one of these 5x7s here, a 5x5 up here. And I think I'm going to slide those in towards the middle. And then do the opposite on this side. I'm going to put my larger one here. And the smaller here. Now I got all my pieces laid out so I have the monochromatic look, but look at the difference it makes just flipping a couple of those pieces. I think that mottled background is really pretty. And let's look at this burlap laid on that. You don't have much contrast there. So if we flip that side to the white side and then lay that burlap on there, look how pretty that is. So I think this is the direction I'm headed with this layout, would be to use the white mottledy side in there so that my burlap shows up better. Adding the little doilies, and I could add those on against the white pieces again for a lot of contrast. And then these banners, I'm not sure what I'll do with those. They could go up across here and here, or we could just go across the top with them. We could use little letters to go inside those. That's something I'll be playing with. But here's our basic layout. So once I get it embellished, I will post that picture right after this video. Now for our last layout, can you believe this will be page 10 and 11 with this collection? Now we started with 12 pieces of paper from the Secret Box collection. We've added a couple of pieces here and there for backgrounds particularly, but look at all the pages we've gotten done. And I've laid my scraps here from the whole collection, and this is all that we have left, but these will make great embellishment pieces. So for our last layout, I am using this, I think Noreen called it the concrete look when she talked about it on the Secret Box video. It's got the lighter gray on the back, which is also really pretty. But I like the fact that it has just a hint of green in this. And I pulled this piece of green paper, and I call everything mottled. It just looks like green splatter paint to me. I pulled this from the Welcome Home collection. It's got this green geometric design on the back. But I think this paper is really pretty. And it pulls out the greens that are in this concrete look. Kind of hard to see it from the camera, but it does pull that out. And I was thinking I wanted to use these green border pieces on this layout. So I'm going back to my 12-inch trimmer. I know that surprises you. But what will surprise you is this time, instead of putting out the arm and cutting at 6, I'm just going to cut this one at 5. It's so funny because I was just looking over all of the pages that we've already laid out, and even though we cut almost every one at 6, all the pages look so very different. And once we get embellishments and pictures on them, they will look totally different. You'll never know that we just spent a lot of time cutting at the 6-inch mark today. And again, I'm going to add these to the center. And it doesn't really matter which side your 5 goes on, which side your 7 goes on. I was thinking that these pieces would be great if you've got several 4x6 pictures that are horizontal. You could stack them here. You could cut down some to be 4x4s and put here. You could do a lot of different things with this layout. And I will give you some photo placement ideas once we do embellishments. So I think on this one, and this border may or may not stay as is, but I kind of like it. I think I'm going to lay that one at the top and lay this one at the bottom, just to create a little bit different look. And of course, we'll add lots of embellishments to that, so it'll look really different when we're finished. But this is page 10 and 11 from our collection. Now, you go ahead and get all these papers taped down, get all of those things done, and then we'll start putting all of our embellishments on. I can't wait to do that part.